We're continuing on with the Arms series, and today's title is Not Short. There's a verse in Numbers 11:23 that says the Lord's arm is not short, and to be short means to be limited or weak. So let's read it in context. The people had received manna from heaven to eat straight from God's hand every day. But again, just like when they were thirsty in the wilderness, they are now tired of God's provision and they want something different. They want meat. We have to note that these same complainers had seen God's provision over and over again, but they were still dissatisfied. Note taken, we do the same. We've had great care from God's hand, yet we come to distrust Him again and again. And God's table wasn't good enough for them, and we often feel the same and fall into discontent. It's easy to do when our eyes are focused on what the world offers. So Moses responded to God by basically quizzing and wondering about God's provision, although he knew God as his provider. He and the people undervalued the power of their God and basically his love for them. He also said it was too much, for Moses said it was too much to carry the burden of supplying all these people's wishes. So the question was, can God furnish a table in the wilderness? God's answer is short, unlike his arm. And he says, has my hand become short? And we know from his word that it has not and it cannot. From creation, when he breathed life, set boundaries, created order, it's established from the beginning of time that God's hand is not short or weak. We know that he does not sleep and he does not grow weary. We know that nothing is too difficult for him. Then what God did is interesting. He satisfied them with what they asked for, and then what they asked for became disgusting to them. So he granted their physical requests, but he sent leanness to their soul. Therefore they named this place as well, and I can't even pronounce it, but it means there they buried the people who craved other food. This is a sobering story of living under the providing hand of God, seeing him work miracles over and over, receiving and tasting satisfying, filling food because the manna was nice and able to be prepared in so many ways. And yet living in dissatisfaction and lust of something more, which then leads into lusting for something they didn't have, and then deciding that God wasn't able to provide it. Yikes. So this devotional is about the fact that God's hand is not short, and to ever think so is a blast to the Father who loves us and created us and holds us in his hands. We can look at this story again and see that the people were tired of the mundane, the miraculous provision that had now become ordinary, and they lost the wonder of God's hand. All of us looking back over our lives have prayed for things and been provided for. And if we live in a house, have children, we're still breathing, we have food in our pantries, we live to see another sunrise, we enjoy dinner and fun with friends, we have received from God's arms a bountiful life to love. It can look rather ordinary when we look at what we don't have or what others do, and this is called envy. Envious eyes cloud a thankful heart. The people actually had become ungrateful, and this spiraled down to viewing their miraculous God as a God with a short arm. Have you ever had to draw straws? No one wants to get the short one because that means you don't win whatever's being offered. But it's the fair way to dole out a random gift. God's gifts and his provision are not random, boring, ordinary, or less than. His hand is not short, and when we think it is, we've forgotten who he is and what he's done in the earth and in our lives. In verse 4, we see the word rabble, which are a disorderly group of people who have sustained complaining as a way of life. I'd never heard that term before. I've known folks like this, and I've been part of the rabble before myself. In Philippians, we read this, do everything without grumbling or arguing so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. What's the word of life? It's the God who says his arm is never short, whose arms are forever open and full of provision, whose arms are everlasting, and who cannot withhold any good thing from those he loves, even while ordinary is the path we're on currently.